Doing incredibly well. I think we've got you both. We've got you both on the stream. It's the first time I've had two guests. You're breaking. You're breaking a record for me for the first time, so I appreciate it. How's life?
We're alive. Yeah.
After
Just
that,
about.
after the funding round, can you? I brought out the gong, especially for you. It's right
Oh,
here. Can we talk to? Tell me the round. Tell me the number. Tell me the valuation.
can't disclose the valuation. Round size was 4 mil. I can give that away. I think it was a touch over in the end.
4 million.
Yeah.
Congratulations, guys. We now know the work starts, and capital is just a means to an end. Can we give us a little context of the stream on Innerworks and the work that you do, and then we can get into it.
Yeah, of course. So everything that we do is answering three fundamental questions at the moment. Do we think that a user that's interacting with the service is a human or not? Which device are they using, and where in the world are they? So they're very simple questions, all of which have become fundamentally much more complicated in an AI threat environment, where the ability for technology to basically mimic authentic human behavior is now extremely easy to access and very, very effective. So everything that Innerworks does comes back to answering those questions at the moment. And we describe what we do as synthetic threat intelligence, meaning any harm that AI can do by mimicking human behavior, we're interested in protecting people from it.
How do we go about doing that today? Is it as simple as just understanding the behavior of what a human does and mapping that onto a process from a back end point of view? Explain it to me. Like I would assume it's like not just a mouse moving around on a screen anymore.
Yeah, so it used to be a matter of modeling human behavior, right? Having a very accurate understanding about what the interaction of an authentic human user would look like, right? Um, in the same way that you can conceive of like what would a person look like if you log into a Zoom call. Um, the field of behavioral biometrics would look at what should a human mouse movement look like, or a type speed, or the angle that you hold your device on the gyroscope. And the problem we now face is that what do you do when a inauthentic user at face value looks exactly the same, right? That an AI tool can generate a perfectly human behavioral biometric profile, which means that all of these detection systems, which relied on the idea that they had a better understanding of what human looked like, that entire premise just doesn't work in this threat environment. It's much more a question of what we would refer to as data genesis. So this user, which at face value looks completely human, was that data generated by a human or an automation tool of some kind? Um, and the techniques you have to use to be able to identify the source of this user profiling data is very, very different. And the second thing is that the techniques the malicious users will be using to bypass detection tools are now evolving far, far faster than cybersecurity systems. So the pace of generative AI tech in and of itself is far faster than cybersecurity tech at the moment. So it's a game of catch up. And Innerworks has basically innovated on those two areas. So specializing in data genesis, and then secondly, the speed at which we can evolve to a new threat. Those are our real areas of expertise.
Tom, why is this the problem that you've decided to solve? Why for you is this going to be some of your life's work and service to society, but also making some money along the way?
Yeah, so I think we spend so much of our lives on the internet, and to know who the person is on the other side of that, to know whether or not they're human, to know whether or not they're the human they claim to be, is a fundamental part of that process that hasn't really been solved yet. And it's a problem that's only going to get harder and only going to become increasingly prevalent when our lives become, in my view, increasingly surrounded by technological interfaces as AI grows, as technology grows. I think we are only going to spend more time on the internet or a future iteration of that. And so solving this problem now is already too late, but we're going to do our best to be the ones to solve it moving forward.
Why do we think that it wasn't innovated on as quickly as other tools and other products? Is it because it wasn't seen as a necessity? Is it because artificial intelligence and the rise of AI, the advent of AI, has just been so fast that we haven't been able to keep up?
So I think this problem has been around before the advent of AI, and I think it's the advent of AI that makes it increasingly harder. Why I think it hasn't been solved yet, and why I think people are including ourselves, are looking to solve it now, is because it's never really been a very flashy problem. It's never really been a problem that's garnered an awful lot of attention. People are interested in the cool new product, the cool new interface, and their own safety and security comes second. And it's only after we start to see the problems that technology gives us that we start to try and retrospectively fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're seeing that with identity and authentication on the internet. I think we're seeing that with AI. And so we're looking to get there ahead of the game as this problem gets harder and harder.
Is this a product that ends up just being proliferated across the internet? It's something that everyone, like every enterprise, can bolt into their tools, their sites, etc.
That's a dream. That's a dream.
It's basically just a foundational layer of, or adds to the foundational layer of the internet.
Yeah, and a fundamental infrastructure for the internet.
I love it. So you are the first line of defense, essentially.
Yeah.
How interesting. How does one begin to map that behavior? Explain that for me. Is it you sit in a room and you simulate a bunch of humans and try and understand how they operate? Does that data set already exist on the web, or is it something you've had to build proprietary IP around?
You nearly nailed it when you said you sit in a room and try to imitate a bunch of humans, but what you actually do is you sit in a room and you try and imitate a bunch of bots.
Okay.
You try and look at what's out there right now and say, okay, this provider is supposedly protecting this website from being logged in by a bot. Mm-hmm. Can we build a bot that bypasses it? And the answer, as it turns out, is yes, and pretty easily. And so when you then have a plethora of different bots that can bypass the tools that are out there in the market, well, then the logical next step is to turn around and say, okay, well, let's build a solution that can detect these bots that we can create to bypass these current systems.
Can I ask then, do you end up having to build lots of bots at the cutting and bleeding edge of technology so that you can then go and also build the defense systems in this synthetic intelligence that you're building?
Yes, and we can also sort of tap into other sources of other people building these bots.
How does one begin to do that?
Ollie, do you want to run with that one a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. So we're a very strong use case for something we refer to as decentralized training.
Okay.
Meaning, by using Innerworks' products, you're not just betting on the ingenuity of our 15 engineers or whatever. We've created an ethical hacking platform where we're constantly crowdsourcing different attack ideas. So basically these communities of engineers online are constantly attacking our systems, also finding ways to bypass our competitor systems. And our engineers spend time not only conducting attacks as well, but also reverse engineering detection techniques for all the stuff that works to beat our systems and beat our competitors. So it's a really adversarial approach, but it means that we are constantly exposed to cutting edge techniques that are used by hackers, and we often see that the attack strategies that we unveil on our hacker platform take 3 to 6 months until we see them live and deployed on the market. But in our view, it sets a new paradigm for how to build a cybersecurity model, especially in a Gen AI threat environment where the evolution of attack frameworks is so faster than a detection technique. It needs complete remodeling. So that's become a real cornerstone of our company is that approach, and it means that we always know that we're ahead because as long as we're able to hack our competitors and bypass their systems and find reverse engineering techniques for that, then we always know that we have a product that's ahead of the game.
Can I ask candidly, does this end up looking very much like a red lab, blue lab situation where you have engineers that are hacking away ethically to sort of defeat the systems, and then you have another team that then sort of has to reverse engineer that?
Yeah, and so I mean the platform itself is called Red Team,
Oh, okay, great.
and I would invite any engineer out there who's interested in hacking to come and play around because you can make some cash if you're successful in bypassing our systems or our challenges. Um, our view on the future of this is that it will be agentic, right? So we'll have a community of engineers that are creating attack agents, and that our internal engineers will focus on internal patching agents that are responding. So that's why that we refer to Innerworks as becoming an immune system for the internet, because our systems grow and improve off the back of high scale exposure to the latest attacks. So we're focused on deploying that immune system in the highest stakes environments now. So protecting money, whether it's a bank or a crypto exchange or a payments platform, also some nation state defense scenarios as well. But this model should be applied to keeping any digital account safe, whether it's an email or a social media account, whatever it might be. The trajectory for the threat environment is akin to us saying keys and passports are no longer going to work, right? That every lock on every door no longer will keep people out, and that we no longer have any way of identifying people using current legacy systems. That is genuinely the scale of the issue. What we are finding is that is rearing its head most acutely in like very specific use cases for now, and it's spreading and spreading, right? So these attacks, you'll see huge breaches on, identity and authentication breaches on airlines, crypto platforms. That sounds like two random examples, but they're low-hanging fruit where we see really, really high cybersecurity issues.
I think more and more we're going to see it in just everyday use, right? It's like, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of scams through just text messages, as an example. I get my Google passwords leaked. It feels like every other day at this point I'm getting a notification, and constantly having to update that. And the fact that you're building an immune system or an immune system response to allow people to sort of be safe. I understand that it might be a non-sexy business, but it feels like this is needed more than ever. What comes to mind? I'm not sure if you're Marvel fans. You know the scene where there's Ultron's image of the brain or his mind, and then there's Jarvis, and Jarvis is blue. It feels like you're Jarvis, but you've had to build Ultron to really allow Jarvis to understand, what is the worst possible scenario and how do we prevent against that.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken, already about how so much of this game is modeling human behavior and then modeling attack frameworks, right? And a huge part of the battle is just having a benchmark for what is a threat and what isn't. And those are the lines that have completely blurred now.
How does one define that? Like you are quite literally writing the script or the laws for these agents to see like this is the line of what is allowed and not allowed. Like where do you draw the line? How do you begin to think about it?
So to give you a specific example, a challenge on Red Team might be, can you generate some mouse movements or some keyboard patterns or some gyroscopic pattern data that seems completely human, right? That if any of current detection systems try and see whether it's a human or a bot, that they will think it's human, right? And the goal for Innerworks in that scenario is not to then improve our understanding of what human behavior is, but instead label that specific strategy that was used, the specific code framework that was used to generate that malicious data set. right? And know that if that strategy comes back, not if that data comes back. If that makes sense.
That does.
Yeah. And but in the end, what's really interesting about the three product lines that we've built is, we refer to it as device and user intelligence. It's the idea that if you have a bad guy, we should be able to find them no matter what device they turn up on again one day. And right now, what we're most focused on is wherever they might use a specific device, even if they steal, unlimited number of synthetic identities are generated, we'll still be able to detect and eliminate that device as something which can safely operate online.
Can you break down how one would do that, or is that's the safeguarded IP?
Tom, hand over to you on this one.
Sorry, repeat that question for us.
I said, how do you break down? Oliver was just talking about how if a bad guy pops up on a device, even if they pop up, like they should be able to pop up again, and Innerworks' product line should be able to spot them, or one of Innerworks' product lines should be able to spot them. How do you do that? Like, what goes on behind the scenes to allow for that?
Let's just sorry, I missed that end bit because
no problem. It's the beauty of live. I was just asking, if a bad guy pops up on one device and then pops up somewhere else in the globe on another device, like how do you figure out it's the same person or the same bad guy, so to speak?
On the same device.
On the same device or on a different device potentially.
Okay, so the way in which you interact with a computer creates an incredibly deep and rich data set that is fundamentally untapped in the industry. I'm sure Ollie would have some nice stats to throw at you, but to map this is like a fingerprint in its own right? The way in which I type on the keyboard, the way in which I move on the mouse, the way in which I am interacting is unique to you in the way that a fingerprint is. And so that's the identity. That's the mapping of one user to the same user in a different place, in a different device.
And so you should, based on your synthetic data intelligence, you're able to quite quickly model who that person is, the way they've interacted with the device, and therefore you can identify this is a bad actor, this is not a bad actor.
Yeah, that's the angle.
Interesting. I've got to ask, this raise, was it an easy raise or was it a hard raise for you guys?
I would never say that fundraising is easy, right? Like, I think that any founder who says that has definitely gotten confused. It's if you're picking high caliber partners, you want people that are going to push you. So even if you're in a hot space, right, and the timing's great, and there are people who will give you capital quickly, you definitely haven't made the right decision if you haven't found people who can challenge you. So it was definitely a challenge for us, but for all the right reasons. We're now backed by real prominent leaders within cybersecurity, fintech, defense, payments, crypto. Our goal was basically to get a cap table around us where if we needed advice on expanding successfully in any one of those particular verticals, that we had met people who had either backed founders or were founders who had done it before. So if you look at companies like Egress, for example, and a massive UK exit last year, or a company like Checkout, a $40 billion payments company, or a company like Onfido, these are all inspiration points for us. In terms of the round dynamics, what was great was that we were in full execution mode when we met everybody.
Nice.
So we were not a slick fundraising roadshow. We were on our mission already, and we crashed into people who we thought could help us. So that's hopefully some insight on how it all happens.
No, I love it. I think that there are a lot of founders that go on the roadshow. We've had some that have been on the show before that are currently on the roadshow or just wrapping up their roadshows. It's not often we bump into people like yourself, where you're in the midst of just like actively pursuing the mission, and you find the right partners along the way. And it's great that you've been able to do that, because it seems like you're building a product that's incredibly valuable for the world, and not just one ecosystem, right? It feels like it's going to proliferate through everything that touches the internet.
Yeah, I mean, we never have to question whether the challenges of value, right? The issues that we're focused on are threats that lead to, vulnerable people losing huge amounts of money,
Yep.
their personal information. These are sort of at the individual level why it's an issue, right? However, more broadly at a macro scale, we can't all safely interact with the internet if you can't have guardrails around accounts, right? We're now in a situation where many, especially the lower friction services, so let's say things like crypto platforms, even social media platforms, they increasingly simply don't know how many real human users they have anymore. And you really see this particularly within social media and crypto, and there's obviously a big overlap with those industries. The massive danger now is it's leaking into the high friction, highly regulated platforms too. The idea that a bank might not know is pretty crazy right now, but it is their biggest fear, right? One of the largest areas of investment for banking CVCs is on areas like identity authentication, deep fake detection on their ID verification systems, their customer services platforms. So, we hopefully will not be sitting here in 5 years' time talking about how crazy it is that banks don't know if their customers are real or not. But that's the trajectory if more companies like us aren't sort of competing in the space.
Do you end up having to communicate that to these enterprise customers, these large banks, as an example, that, hey, this is the world that we live in, and sort of give them an education on what the landscape is on the internet at this point in time? Or is it that
So
they already understand?
it really depends on the partner, right? Like I would say, what's more dangerous is when you meet companies who have taken out, let's say, best of breed cybersecurity providers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can tell you, for example, that the top 10 providers of bot detection are wrong well over 50% of the time, right? I would need to check my numbers exactly, but I think probably closer to over 70% of the time, them being wrong would still be a solid bet. So companies that have decent procurement standards feel that they've taken out protection, when us who are on the kind of bleeding edge of this, we know that the stuff that they've taken out really doesn't work particularly well. So there are companies who have really good intentions, but there's genuinely a gap in the market where there's this huge performance delta. Something that we've consistently been shocked by is basically the lack of correlation between market adoption and product performance, right? So you've got these guys who don't have very effective cybersecurity tools who sold at really high scale. There's only so long that can continue. And there's only so long that the story doesn't all come together, which is, it's not about a bot detection tool, a device fingerprinting tool, right? It's about this fear we have of telling the difference between AI and human. And I think that all big enterprises understand that that's the next big sort of forefront for them to be dealing with. Yeah.
You guys must think, or like the conversations around dinner must be quite interesting as you think about the world in the future. I imagine that you're thinking quite deeply about like the defense of the internet, so to speak, or defense of the individual. When talking to investors, what's really interesting I've come across is like the thoughtful questions that they ask about, what is the hardest problem you've optimized as one of, what was it for you guys? What was the one investor or partner that you brought on that asked something, or like, geez, we could sit here for hours and talk about that?
I would say, well, almost all of the investors, I feel that way. Because I think if you have a lot of operator investors on your cap table, they've all gone on a crazy journey from, being a few people sat around looking for their first 100K or whatever, to suddenly having a company that was sold for a few hundred mil, or, even a billion upwards. So depending on what our question is,
What's the one you enjoyed the most?
so I think one of the most interesting moments for us has been, so one of the I'll tell you that they're a top 5 global crypto platform, and we did an early test, like POC with them, where we unveiled that, the top provider of bot detection had authenticated a user population that was over 80% bots, right? And they definitely didn't know that. So we thought that they had basically kind of played a trick on us in some way, where they had tried to test their own systems by allowing like a lot of bots through. And that was a watershed moment for us, where we understood that there was actually an evidence-based opportunity to compete. It wasn't in our heads, and we couldn't believe what we were looking at. And when we spoke with other investors that we have, they had very similar stories to tell, the moment that they started working with us in some way, because we tend to have a working relationship with all of our investors. Like, we don't have any passive capital, right? These are all people that we can deploy the product with, or lead us to other deals as well. But yeah, that was probably the most shocking moment for us, in a basement in Waterloo a year or so ago.
That sounds insane. For what would you say? Over 80%? That's just wild. Imagine not knowing that.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, 2 questions. One, do you have any idea of where the most malicious attacks come from in the world? Is it
Tom, do you want
is it a
to?
region? Is it a group of people, or is it just so distributed across the internet?
Um, I don't have an answer for sort of geographical, but one of the most interesting kinds of attacks, and one of the most dangerous, that we're looking at the moment, that I'm not sure many people are familiar with, is called credential stuffing. And so this is the idea. This is why you're told to change your password between accounts, right? Because what happens is there's a data leak somewhere, and there's loads of username password combinations on the dark web somewhere. Someone goes and picks it up, and then they target every login page that they possibly can with those username and passwords, so that if you've repeated it from one site to another, not only did they hack one account, but they've hacked 2, maybe 3, and you can compromise serious accounts. We're talking banking, spend all your frequent flyer miles, whatever, right? And that's one of the most sort of interesting, serious attacks that we're looking to deal with at the moment. Yeah. Do you have anything on the geography point, Ollie?
Yeah, DPRK, I would say. So there's an enormous fear within both crypto and fintech, of North Korean centric attacks. And this is, yeah, it's real. I can tell you that for sure. I mean, we're partnered with the lead investigator into the Bybit hack, which is the largest crypto heist ever. There's $1 billion stolen. And other exchanges now use our device fingerprinting technology to try and detect any presence of actors who could cause that kind of threat again, or be laundering money from the original heist. So there's to have a nation state so systematically, like, effective with one particular vertical is definitely really scary. One of the strangest things I think we've come across as well, and this will definitely be a big emerging story, is the presence of North Korean actors, even like on platforms like Upwork and LinkedIn. So as a
What?
tech, yeah, so as a tech innovator, you very frequently will have freelancer relationships or remote workers.
Yeah.
And they will steal identities and conduct remote work for two different reasons. One of them might be to infiltrate a particular company with a view that they have IP or access to private information that would allow them to breach another company. Or it simply might be that they're just doing a good job as a freelancer, but all of the money is going to the North Korean government. So it is, effectively communities that are working extremely long hours under terrible conditions and not getting any of the money. So the manifestations of DPRK threats there's
It's
immensely high
real.
forms. And yeah, we've played a small part in helping detect their presence, specifically on crypto platforms. But it's definitely, I would definitely encourage you as well to get another founder on who's been looking at those types of frauds that happen on these freelancer platforms, because there will be startups across the UK that have paid money to places like North Korea without having any idea.
I might have to lean on you for some of those intros. Jens, before I let you go, like, why is this the core founding team? Like, why the three of you? Is it Oscar as well? Why is it you guys work so well together that this is going to be an incredible company?
I guess I'd come back to one thing I said about investors. Like, we push each other extremely hard, and we're completely different. We will not sit around a table agreeing about the next step forward. We have a very strong common view about what the future looks like for the company, and often push ourselves in different directions on how to get there. So we don't have a founder story about like, hey, we all went to uni together, or like we all used to be best friends. We came together because we thought that we were the right people, the right set of skills to, go on this mission effectively. Tom, do you want to share your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, maybe to reiterate the same points, but we share a unified vision of what the problem is and the direction we're going in to solve it. We come about it in very different ways, and I think there's a very sort of like push-pull relationship between us that makes sure that there's no groupthink. We're not sort of narrowing ourselves in one particular solution. We're experimental, and we're sharing the cognitive load between the three of us.
Gentlemen, this has been an absolute pleasure and a masterclass in all things protecting the internet. Thank you for thank you for your service almost for looking after us. I'm sure you are the actors that we don't know about. I appreciate the time. I look forward to doing a deeper dive at a later date. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thanks so much.